Picture the coldest day you've ever experienced. Now subtract 40 more degrees. That's not a bad winter. That's a Tuesday during the last ice age. Wind that doesn't just chill your skin, it starts killing it. Air so cold that breathing feels like swallowing glass. And somewhere out on that frozen steppe, a group of humans, no coats from a store, no heater, no walls, decided they were going to live there anyway. Not just survive. Live, raise kids, tell stories, sleep through the night. How? Because what they built to fight that cold is so unexpected that when archaeologists first uncovered it, many struggled to explain what they were looking at. Let's throw out the image you have in your head. The shivering caveman, huddled in a cave, barely making it to morning. The evidence tells a different story. Survival method number 1. They turned the ground itself into a heater. At sites in Russia dating back tens of thousands of years, archaeologists found something strange. Perfectly circular pits, dug deep into the earth. Some measured over 5 meters across, large enough for an entire family to live inside through winter. Too clean, too symmetrical, not natural. So why dig down? Here's the science. Every meter you go below the surface, the temperature becomes more stable. The earth acts almost like a giant thermal battery, slowly absorbing heat all summer, then slowly releasing it through the winter months. Your ancestors weren't hiding underground. They were living inside a battery. Survival method number 2. They turned monsters into houses, but underground shelters alone weren't enough. Winter had another problem. Building materials. There were no forests out here, almost no wood. So what do you build a house from when the landscape gives you almost nothing? The answer sounds impossible. In parts of Ukraine and Russia, at sites like Kostenki and Mezhirich, archaeologists uncovered something almost unbelievable. At first, it looked like a pile of bones. Then the pattern became obvious. It wasn't a pile, it was a house. Entire structures built from the remains of woolly mammoths. Some contained the bones of dozens of individual animals. Hundreds of bones total, carefully arranged into a single stable frame. Why mammoth bones? Because they weren't just available, they were incredibly strong. Tusks could span several meters and curve into a dome on their own. Massive leg bones resisted crushing weight. Together, they formed a surprisingly rigid frame, a skeleton built from skeletons. Archaeologists call these mammoth bone dwellings, and they're considered among the most remarkable Ice Age structures ever discovered. Far from desperate improvisation, these shelters reveal careful planning and construction techniques repeated across multiple sites. Experimental reconstructions suggest that combined with thick hides, earth insulation, and a central fire, the interior would have been dramatically warmer than the freezing world outside. Something close to what you're seeing right now. -40 outside, +20 inside. Built from bone, dirt, and hide. Survival method number 3. Fire wasn't warmth. It was the entire operation. Every day began with the fire. Meals depended on it. Warmth depended on it. Dry clothing depended on it. Even tomorrow's fire depended on keeping today's alive. Researchers believe a main hearth likely provided primary heat, with smaller fires positioned around the space for specific tasks. Cooking here, tool making there. The warmest corner reserved for the very young and very old. But out on the open, treeless steppe, wood ran out fast, so they burned something else entirely. Chemical evidence from some Ice Age sites suggests people intentionally burned dried mammoth bone and dung when wood was scarce, carefully managing whatever fuel they had. And there was another problem few people think about: moisture. Every breath, every pot of cooking meat releases water vapor into the air. Inside a sealed shelter at sub-zero temperatures, that moisture can freeze, and ice building up inside a structure threatens the whole thing. Researchers believe these shelters likely included small openings that let fresh air circulate while smoke and moisture escaped. A basic airflow system built into a house made of bone, long before anyone had a word for engineering. Survival method number 4. They turned clothing into portable shelter. Nobody survived in a single animal skin. Archaeological evidence and studies of traditional Arctic clothing suggest ancient cold-weather garments were built in layers. An inner layer of fur trapping heat against the skin, an outer layer of tougher hide throwing off wind and snow. Here's why fur works at all. Each hair traps tiny pockets of still air, and still air is one of nature's best insulators. It's not the fur keeping you warm, it's the air the fur is holding hostage. Different furs were likely chosen for different jobs, balancing warmth, durability, and weather resistance. Same basic principle behind the jacket in your closet right now, invented from pure necessity. Tens of thousands of years earlier, survival method, #5. They planned an entire season ahead. A mammoth bone house wasn't thrown together overnight. Building one would likely have required many people working together over an extended stretch of time, which means the work had to start in late summer, months before the first snowfall. Missing that window didn't just mean discomfort. It could mean not surviving until spring. Food had to be planned too. Below the frozen surface, temperatures stayed consistently cold enough to slow spoilage for months. A natural freezer built into the ground itself. Survival method number 6. Surviving? The dark was its own kind of survival. Staying warm wasn't the only battle. Winter also meant surviving months of near-total darkness, together, in close quarters. Some historians and sleep researchers believe many pre-industrial societies commonly practiced segmented sleep, a stretch of rest, then a waking period in the middle of the night, then sleep again, until dawn. That waking hour wasn't wasted. Winter trapped people indoors for weeks at a time. Knowledge became entertainment. Stories may have become survival manuals, disguised as myths passed from the fire to the next generation. Night after night, cave paintings and carved figurines from this era are frequently tied to winter shelter. Sites created during the long stretch when the outside world was frozen solid, and the only light left was firelight. Every winter night, they slept beneath the bones of the same animal that had fed them, clothed them, heated them, and protected them. So here's the real takeaway. They didn't survive the Ice Age because they were tougher than we are. They survived because they solved problems. Every winter taught a lesson. Every generation improved on the last. And somewhere beneath frozen ground, built from mammoth bone and stitched hide, human ingenuity became warm enough to outlast the cold. So the next time you step outside on the coldest day you've ever experienced, remember, your ancestors faced something even harsher, and instead of leaving, they learned how to make that frozen world feel like home. If stories like this make you see human history differently, subscribe. We uncover forgotten chapters of our ancestors' lives using real archaeology, scientific evidence, and the latest discoveries to separate myth from reality. Until next time.